Welcome to the Underground, the Steel City Underground, the black and gold standard for Pittsburgh Steelers coverage. Now, here are your hosts, Joe Kuzma and Brian E. Roach.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Steel City Underground podcast. Struggling with a sore throat and some nasal congestion here. My name is Joe Kuzma. I am going to struggle with this, but to help carry me along, as he usually does with a sore back, as he carries me through many of our episodes. Mr. Brian E. Roach. What's going on, B?
It's good. I've been doing some good back exercises. I'm set. I'm good to go, man.
Back exercise. That's good, man, because you got to be silky smooth while I'm like, gravelly, grovely, and whatever else. I don't really know. My mind is foggy, but I do have some public service announcements to take care of real quick. This is the part where everyone usually just skips ahead along in the podcast. Don't do that, because Brian would very much like if still for the next month you visit us over at steelcityunderground.com/March of Dimes for your opportunity to donate to the March of Dimes. You donate for a good cause. You help kids. And if you help kids, we'll enter you into a contest to win an autographed Troy Polamalu jersey. I think that's a pretty fair deal.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're getting some decent response. I think we got 3 or 4 guys entering, some nice donations. Somebody just made a donation the other day, put Steel City Underground, told us we rock. It's very kind. I don't remember your name, so I feel like a jerk. But we appreciate the donation as well. And yeah, for every buck that you donate to the March of Dimes, you get a chance to win this Troy Polamalu jersey, which is pretty sweet.
Very sweet. Too sweet to be to be precise there. I told you I'm going to jump around, so you're going to have to bear with us, listeners. I'm struggling. I've been struggling the last few days, but another thing we got that's struggling on through is our March Madness tournament, where we were deciding the best, and basically Steelers fans were deciding the Steelers uniform is going to win is what's going to happen, but it's still quite interesting what's going on here. What we did was all 32 NFL teams, and we asked everyone, we polled them, we put them together in a tournament, much like the NCAAs. We're down to the Final Four, so if you're listening to this, this is Friday. That means the Final Four semis are on Saturday. That would be tomorrow. And if you have a chance to vote on those through the weekend, the championship will be on Monday. So the Steelers are in there along with a few other teams. I think it's quite interesting. The bracket's already updated. The voting will actually open Saturday for those 2 semifinal games. I anticipate the Steelers are going to walk away with this one on a Steelers-focused website. I wouldn't be surprised otherwise. So one other order of business I do have is that I know some of the advertisements, the pittance that we get from it is nice, but for the few pennies that we were receiving, they were quite annoying, even to myself. I do understand and sympathize, and I do appreciate everyone that goes to our website. So I wanted to notify, at least the listeners will notify the readers probably early next week, or they'll notice the change that some of these pop-up interstitial and other things that get in the way. We're only dealing with one ad provider from now on, and that's Google. The other one is out the window, out the door, kick them to the curb. Just wasn't worth the hassle for what little we got. And trust me, it's nice to have a little bit to offset some of our operational costs here, because most of this for us is a labor of love. But if you do like what we do and you want to be a patron of Steel City Underground, we already have a few people that have done this as well. It's $2 a month on PayPal. If you go to Comment Anywhere on the site, you'll see a membership sign on. It's SCU Black or SCU Gold, and the SCU Gold will give you ad-free browsing when you're signed in, so you won't see any ads whatsoever. If you do that, it puts a little bit in our till, and then we can share the wealth here, and everyone, they could go get maybe a cup of coffee or something for their hard work. So we do appreciate the patrons that we do have already, and if you're interested in looking at that, I don't have the link off the top of my head because I'm a terrible salesperson. So, but you could just click on, there's a sign-up button somewhere, and you could sign up and have your own account. And we're working on some other special things to do for those gold members, paying members as well here into the future. But all of our articles, we don't have anything behind a paywall. We're not trying to be one of these larger sites that rhymes with BK or we'll just say The Athletic. You got some of these guys out there, or the ESPN Insider. We still have the only thing we could sell to you as content for free, because we realize some people are just going to steal it anyways or give it away or rip us off. And we just said, yeah, what the heck? You know what? We don't want to alienate the people who do enjoy coming. Maybe not everyone can afford to read or to pay to read some of this stuff. People will share passwords and things of that nature too. So it was like, if you like what we do, it's up to you. You could donate. You could be a patron, and if not, that's cool too. No harsh feelings towards anyone. Not as harsh as some things we saw on Instagram. But Brian, I'll let you chime in here.
You okay? You lead me right into the topic of the day, so to speak. Of course, yes, and let me just second. Of course, we love getting the feedback from the people who are listening and reading. It's great. Hey, subscribe to to us on YouTube if you're listening to us through that venue, and give us a like or two. That's fantastic. But yeah, the topic of the day.
Hey, can I interrupt you real quick on that too? Because YouTube changed some crap, and it's got me angry. Like Bruce Banner turning into Hulk angry, make me green and destroy things. Well, we have a lot of great listeners over on YouTube, and they changed things at the end of February, so it's been a month now where all those ads you see, if you're one of the folks who are listening to this on YouTube and you get an ad that cuts in the middle of this, we get nothing off of those ads because we don't have 1,000 subscribers, which is the baseline. 1,000 subscribers, and then it's like a ginormous amount of thousands of hours of listens, which all of our listeners are very gracious to giving us. So the listens aren't a problem. We've got the hours. We just don't have. We're like at 500 some subscribers. So if you're listening to this and you have like a Google account or a YouTube account, and even if you don't necessarily listen on YouTube, we would appreciate the subscription just so we could get, once again, a little bit of a kickback off of YouTube making money from our product.
Sounds good. Sounds reasonable. Why not?
So sorry, Brian. You just jogged my memory. I said we got some housekeeping to do today.
Yes, we did. And you've kept the house exceptionally well, sir. All right, topic of the day. Earlier today, one LeVeon Bell sent the Steelers Nation into a frenzy, a Twitter madness state, because he tweeted out that it's so hard to be a hero when a city paints you as a villain. And look, that's not going to play so good. Here's the thing. We've been talking about Bell, and we continue to be for over a year, right? It started when we put the tag on him last year, and we've continued to talk about the same situation. And in addition to that little nonsensical Instagram post that he put up, it came out, a couple days ago, that Bell wants $17 million. He wants to be paid what Antonio Brown's being paid. You take those things into account and you just go, okay, it's not going to work. Look, you were offered $13+ million a year at a position where nobody else is making more than 8.5. You were shown that you were valued by the team. You were shown that you were respected. You were given what in this market is a more than fair value. And does that mean that LeVeon shouldn't try and get the most he can get? Sure, it doesn't. No, absolutely not. He should do his best. But at some point, doesn't reality become a factor? Doesn't the market value of a running back become a factor? Doesn't the fact that the Steelers are not going to set markets, the Steelers are not going to blow markets away, doesn't all that become a factor rather than trying to paint a pity party with the fans and say, y'all are so mean to me? This act is wearing a little thin for me.
It is, and I like what Eric said as an analogy the other day. He basically said it is what it is, whatever, because he wasn't in Eric's situation here. His scenario, he talks about Ben Affleck being Batman, assuming the role of Batman, and how a lot of people did not like that. But it is what it is. If I have to live with it that way, that's fine. And I said, you know what? That's kind of the way I am with LeVeon Bell right now. Whatever happens, happens. I'm not going to be heartbroken if he stays. I'm not going to be heartbroken if he goes. But this whole act, this whole charade that he's got going on, it's grating. And when you said the best thing here, a pity party. He's wanting pity. He's wanting some sympathy. We asked if I think one of our podcasts not too long ago was, can you empathize with LeVeon Bell? And we gave all of the reasons why he deserves to make some money. But here's the deal. There is a market, there is a threshold for, and you could say by position, he could say he's a wide receiver too, you could say he's a great player. There's a number of factors working against him in his market value. Number one, obviously, is you are a running back where no one else is making double figures. And you've been offered almost double. You will be making almost double of the next highest paid player. You want to talk about resetting the market and all of these other things. It's hard to be a hero and expect anyone's pity. Oh, poor you. You're already making more than everyone else, and you want even more. That comes off as one thing, and that's greedy. And is Bell worth it? Maybe, maybe not. There's a few things here. And this is why people don't necessarily think that maybe he's the hero, why he comes off as the villain. The first is, how many times has he been in trouble off of the field? It was almost instantaneous. It was his second year in the league with him and Blunt and the whole marijuana deal in the car and before a preseason game. That's not something that's going to lend you a lot of, let's say, positive feedback. Then you have basically a missed drug test, which equates a failure, and all the things that proceed with that the year after. And this is right after, it's around the time I want to say he had the ESPN, the documentary. It was like the E60. He had a segment on that, and he taught. Didn't he bring his mom out onto it, or he was talking about how his mom would be disappointed, and that's something that he wouldn't do, and this and that. And all of a sudden, it's like he's in trouble again and missing games. Then there's his health. No one knew with how bad that knee injury was that he had the first time around that he would be able to come back, and then of course it has a knee injury again, and those things tend to wear you down. So he's been suspended twice, he's been severely injured twice. The team is stuck by him through and through, put up with the tantrums from the last offseason and training camp, which includes other social media posts such as him signing a contract with Dairy Queen, stringing everybody along and having his yucks. And some of it I find in good fun, and in some of it I'm just like, okay, man, we get it. You're rapping about wanting this or that as your price tag. You have a hobby, cool. You're allowed to. No one's saying you can't. But he's 26 now, right? And he's had over 2,500 touches in his career, whether he's been thrown the ball or handed it off. And you kind of think there's that it's been statistically proven, and I think the most recent guy was DeMarco Murray was the example of the drop-off. And running backs, where are they going to go? Where's he going to be when he's 28? When he's already turned down this huge contract, like you said? I don't know that it's necessarily worth investing the money.
No, and there's some sanity checks that need to take place. Look, he's been put on a tag. He was put on a tag last year for 12 point something, and the Steelers offered him a contract that was better than that. And he turned it down. His agent nearly lost his mind because he turned it down. The agent, if reports are true, the agent had actually agreed to the contract, and Le'Veon Bell said, "No, man, no, I pass." And then you come to this year, and he's tagged for 14 point something. And the thing is, when teams try to negotiate a deal off of the tag, the tag is not a baseline. the tag is a 1-year deal that it says, okay, we couldn't work out something else. This is what, the bargained agreement says we'd have to pay you to keep you this year. But it isn't a baseline. And most teams try to work a deal that's long-term that does two things, right? It helps them in a cap situation so that their team can get better, and it provides some level of security for the player. It's not going to be fully guaranteed. The Steelers don't really do fully guaranteed. But beside the fact that I say that, for the most part, 3 years of it will be guaranteed because the Steelers also don't back out on deals. I mean, if you're injured, if you're hurt, as long as you've been, fulfilling your obligations to the team, the Steelers are not a team that says, sorry, we're not going to do this, and cut you loose. So, he's fairly well secure if he does that. But now, if he's looking at 14 point whatever and saying, no, that's not good enough. I need Antonio Brown money because that's who I am. Antonio Brown is an explosive player. He's dynamite. He is a chunk yardage player. You cannot look at what LeVeon Bell did last year and call him a chunk yardage player. He's not. He had 1 plus 20-yard run. One. His longest gain of the season was 27 yards. He's not a chunk yard player based on his statistics from last year. And with all running backs, you cannot expect him to come back this season and suddenly be better. The decline tends to be quick, and that doesn't mean he's going to be in 10 times worse. But if he's the same as he was last year, then he's still not a player that is going to be that kind of explosive player that Antonio Brown is. He's not worth $17 million. Now, I was reading some of the nonsense that was going on Twitter, and I've seen both sides of it. There are people who have what I want to call Le'Veon Bell blinders.
Yeah.
They're so in love with Bell. He's their man for whatever reason, and they're blind to reality. Ooh. Or they're in denial and they've painted their own picture of reality.
Yeah, those are the same people who think Hines Ward could come back and still play.
Yeah, exactly. And so one guy said something like, he's worth $17 million. Stop playing yourself. Nobody want to see him get paid. People want to see him get paid. I've heard tons of people saying they want him to get paid. They want him to get paid an amount that's fair to him, fair to the team, and allows the team to be competitive. If he wants $17 million right now, that's not even feasible for the team. You're now adding $3+ million or close to $3 million to the cap number that they don't even have. They wouldn't be able to sign their draft picks.
Yeah, that's like how much Vance McDonald's making in a year. And I mean, it's just crazy to me. And I get the same thing. What are the other kind of people, by the way? Or was it the other ones that were just like, don't pay him, ship him out of town?
Oh, yeah. You've got it really doesn't. You don't have a lot of middle ground people. And I consider myself a middle ground person here for the most part. But you don't have a lot of those. It's one way or the other. It's either pay him. He's the greatest thing since sliced bread. Give him all the money. We don't care. Dump everybody else off the team. All we need is Le'Veon. Or he's not worth a dime. Get him out of town. Ungrateful son of a gun. You're a traitor, you're horrible, go away.
Yeah. And then, exactly. James Harrison commenting on the Instagram post himself. It's like, oh, you've got room to talk. And it's like, I saw some other people comparing the Bell situation right now to like Mike Wallace and then Yammer Yager several years ago with the Penguins, where he didn't sign with the Penguins, signed with the Flyers, their rival instead. It's just, I totally get that. Here's the real problem with Bell too. Is like, it's like a Joe Flacco contract. Like you said, it would handcuff the team. It would prevent them from being able to fill their roster with other players. The Ravens were a Super Bowl winner and have barely been competitive. They've been okay competitive, but they haven't been a playoff team recently. I don't know the situation. I'm not in the climate with my feet on the ground in Baltimore. I wonder if there's ever fire Harbaugh comments or fire Ozzie Newsome, although Newsome's going to be taking a step down here shortly from his post, if he hasn't already. I think he was sticking through the draft. That would be their general manager for the layperson that doesn't know. Based on their success, because we know when Mike Tomlin had the 8-8 years, it was fire them. It's always fire Todd Haley when you exit the playoffs, even though you entered with the bye and all this other stuff. Here's my real deal too. Besides the money, I mean, it is real. Being realistic, and it's like the one thing Bell isn't understanding here is there's no team that's paying 2 Antonio Browns, okay? You have one, and that's it on the roster, because you can't afford to have 2 Antonio Browns. You may have a star on offense and a star on defense, and the Steelers are already paying a few guys a hearty amount of money on the other side of the ball, like Cam Hayward or Stephon Tuitt when he got his new contract and things of that nature. So that's something where he has to understand there's just not enough to go around. They have Ben Roethlisberger. They have a franchise quarterback that's making a lot of money and takes a nice little chunk out of that cap space, and then they have a wide receiver. You cannot pay all of this money because it just doesn't exist. There is a cap. There is a limit. There is a ceiling. This isn't the NBA where LeBron James can make, I don't know, however many millions of dollars in a season, and you could just grab somebody from one of the the leagues out in Europe and stash them away for $500,000 or something just in a pinch to fill a roster spot. It doesn't work the same way in the NFL. It just does not work that way. Here's my other issue with the LeVeon Bell thing. How much of his production is actually predicated on that he does have Ben Roethlisberger, and they do have this offensive line that had 3 Pro Bowlers on it this year. That would be Pouncey, DeCastro. DeCastro may be the best guard in the NFL right now. Also, Alejandro Villanueva made the Pro Bowl. Okay, more popularity contest in my humble opinion, probably about an average lineman at their left tackle. And you still have the big ragu, Ramon Foster. You have Marcus Gilbert, who many feel should be a Pro Bowler. You see what some of these other guys, you see when those guys aren't even on the field. Let's take it another step further, because I was talking about Stephen Ridley in Week 17 against the Cleveland Browns when, you know what, I'm going to pull up that starting lineup here and kick this over to you for a second because I'm interested in that. But I did have Ridley's stats readily available, and I can tell you, I think Pouncey sat, DeCastro may have sat, maybe someone else sat. They had B.J. Finney and Matt Filer in there for sure, maybe even Chris Hubbard. And Ridley still ran 17 times for 80 yards and a touchdown, which you could almost put that up against several of Bell's games from last season. If I get his game log here, you'd be surprised, because you were talking about just his long for the year. He ran for almost 1,300 yards. He had 9 touchdowns, which is the most he's had in a career. And but he ran for more yards in 2014. He did play all 16 games. He's got a lot of tread on him. He caught 85 passes, 655 yards. Okay, that's all fine and dandy. We know that this is the reason he wants to get paid is because running backs have a short shelf life. He may have another year or two like that. He may just go downhill immediately. But you look at some by comparison, 27 carries for 87 yards, that's not quite in the same category. That's way worse per average. His first game of the year was 10 for 32. So then 27 for 87, 15 for 61. Very slow starts. He finally broke out against the Ravens on the road week 4, 35 for 144, 2 touchdowns. He had 15 for 47 against Jacksonville in that horrible Week 5 loss. And a lot of that was because Ben was throwing the ball around because they got so far behind. Then he had, 32 touches, 35 touches, then 25 for 76. So the previous two, 179, 134 yards. Then 25 for 76, 26 for 80. We'll go further down. 12 for 46, 20 for 95. That's about in the same category as Ridley there. 1876, that's in that category. 1348, 3.69 average. That's 24 for 117 against New England. Excellent. 14 for 69, also excellent against the Texans. And then Ridley came in for that game as well. So what you're seeing is I don't know, maybe some of this is because the Steelers just have a really good offense and a really good offensive line.
Yeah, I think the key here is that the Steelers have an offense that is tailored for Bell in the sense that the offensive line is coached to accent his running style, right? They understand how he plays. And when he doesn't come in the entire training camp, they don't get the reps together. He can say all he wants, it doesn't matter. That's baloney. It's bull. It does matter because those guys need to stay in sync, and it takes time to adjust it after a full offseason. Nobody else runs in the style that Bell runs in. And the thing is, you put Bell on any other team, just from the get-go, he's not going to be as productive. He simply isn't. And the reason is the blockers won't know how to block for him, because any other running back is more of a hit the hole and go kind of guy, fast and make the decision immediately. They're not wandering around in the backfield smoking a cigarette waiting to go. And while we love that about him and we think it's fantastic when he does it, sometimes we end up screaming, "Geez, go, God, what are you doing?" But it's amazing to watch, but there is no one else in the league that plays that way. And there is no other line in the league that is going to know how to block for him. They had to learn how to do it with him. It's been a growth process, so they're kind of, synchronously connected. That without the line, Bell's not Bell. But I think the line can block for anybody.
Yeah, I believe so too. By the way, Hubbard did not start in that game, but it was B.J. Finney at center, and then DeCastro sat as the right guard for Matt Filer. So very interesting there. That would be the Week 17 game where Ridley ran for 80-some yards. And even looking at this, Stephen Ridley, 3 of those attempts, left tackle being Alejandro Villanueva, 26 yards. He had 1 left guard for a yard, 6 attempts right up the middle for 20. That's right behind Finney. Right guard 2 for 7, so that's behind Filer, and then right tackle around Gilbert 4 for 11. So that's just and 1 around the right end. He didn't have 1 around the left end, 1 for 15. A lot of that, I think, and here, this is really to put this. If this doesn't put it into perspective, how long was Stephen Ridley with this team for before he got these carries? He was there for a couple of days before Christmas for the Week 16 game a week earlier against the Houston Texans. I was surprised he even had a jersey number, let alone carries in that game. And then he went and started the following week and was productive. If that doesn't make you a believer, go back the year before with D'Angelo Williams and see what D'Angelo Williams did that season. And then the year before that, in his first year with the Steelers, he was an AFC Player of the Week more than once. I think he had a 3-touchdown game the one time at home. I think of the playoff game where D'Angelo Williams and Bell weren't available with the Browns, and it was, Jordan Todman and, the other name is escaped, Fitzgerald Toussaint.
Yeah.
And if it wasn't for Fitz had a great game against the Broncos, sans the fumble that he had, or else the Steelers are going to the AFC title game then too. So I think a lot of it is coaching. The standard is the standard, and this is where we want to talk about. Can the Steelers move on from LeVeon Bell? You said, did they just rescind the tag and just let him go? Possibly, but I think it would be a Jarvis Landry type deal like the Dolphins just did. Hey, sign your tag. We're going to shop you for a trade. You're going to get the money that you want this year, and then if you extend or negotiate something different with one of these other teams, great. If not, you're a free agent or whatever. I think that might be the best way to go with Bell right now if the draft happens to work out in the Steelers' favor, and we've got some names that could be potential fits there. But what do you think about that, Brian? I mean, there's going to be there's some rioting maybe about it, but I mean, you know what? They don't have $17 million, and they could sure use the savings they would get from shipping them off somewhere else too. Maybe bring in a few more free agents.
Yeah, they absolutely do not have the cap space, and they're not going to have the cap space to pay him $17 million a year. They had to struggle to find the $14.5 million or whatever it is this year just for the tag. So, one way or another, the real view of this is, if he plays on the tag this year, he's done. That's it. That's the last year he's in Pittsburgh. And if that's going to be the case, it is very conceivable that the Steelers could find themselves in the position sitting at 28 or looking at possibly moving up 2 or 3 spots and grabbing a running back that is more than capable. That back won't be Bell, but they'll be capable, and saying, let's just move on. Now, your idea of sign and trade, I think that's reasonable. I think that's exactly the best move they could do, even if they could even do it on if they can work it out on draft day.
Yeah,
pull a sign and trade to move up to get the guy they want. Of course, that all depends on Bell being willing to even sign at that point in time, because they can't force him to sign. And if he decides, look, yeah, you want to trade me? Fine. I'm not gonna sign until I know where you're going to trade me. And then he finds out that the trade's going to be to Cleveland, and he decides he's not going.
Well, yeah, I don't think they want him either. Even though they got the cap space, they have Carlos Hyde now, and they still have Duke Johnson, and then they have Matthew Days, and they have a ton of draft picks still.
Absolutely. And the bottom line is, look, when's the last time a running back and the running game won you a Super Bowl? Terrell Davis in the Broncos, is it anybody since then? Is it, running backs aren't the key to unlocking that Super Bowl day, game, that trophy. It's a piece of the puzzle, but they're not the answer, as proven both the teams in the game last year, running back by committee. So, you don't have to have this standout running back. Would it be nice? Of course it would. But that's where reality and fantasy start to mix in. It's not Madden, right? We're living in the real world. It's not Madden.
Not?
No, it's not. You don't have Madden money or the ability to just go in and alter people's contracts so that they're making, $4 so you can sign somebody else. You don't have that kind of flexibility. There's no way they could pay him that kind of money. So, if he wants to maintain this tact that he's on of, I'm not going to take less than my worth, and I've decided what my worth is. Look, let's be realistic. You don't decide your worth. Markets decide worth. Somebody doesn't, create a product and decide it's worth X. They can try, but what happens is the market tells them whether it really is worth X or not. And if it doesn't sell, it ain't worth X. And sorry, Bell, if nobody wants you at that price, that ain't your worth. It may be your worth in your own head, but it's not a real value. And your value is going to be determined by what people are willing to pay you. And if the Steelers have set a value on you that is far and above any other running back in the league, it absolutely resets the running back market, and you poo-pooed it. So playing the victim is very disingenuous.
I almost wish they would do the Patriots, the Dontte Hightower thing, and say, yeah, but you know what? Go out there, see if you get any bites. Here's a little bit of bait. See if you get a nibble. Let us know if you get a little tug on the line. And they got a couple tugs, and he didn't like what he was pulling out there. He got a shoe from somewhere. He got something. Yeah, it dragged on the ground for a little bit in Pittsburgh, and they said, you know what? If you pull this out here and you leave, it's gone. So there was nothing left on the hook. So he had to go back to New England in order to get his dinner, basically. And I think that's really where the reality has to be with Bell. He's kind of holding them over a barrel right now because of the franchise tag. And I think in our next episode here, Brian, we're going to talk about some whether or not the Steelers could draft a suitable replacement in this upcoming draft, specifically looking ahead for LeVeon Bell, even in the following one if they should keep him for this season. They may even have the guy on the roster too. We're not ignoring James Conner here, trust me, folks. I don't necessarily like his injury history here or there. I don't know that he's an every down guy, but I mean, we're going to look at some of the guys that have been drafted early and in some of the mid and late rounds over on our next show. And we're going to see that, you know what? There may be a more affordable alternative, at least a guy, maybe not the bell cow, but there aren't that many teams that are just running a guy into the ground. There's basically the Steelers with Bell, the Cowboys with Zeke Elliott, the Rams with Todd Gurley, and you know what? I'm drawing a blank. Is there anybody else out there? Almost everyone else is by committee or platoon, pretty much.
Yeah, I mean, I can't think of another. Almost every team is exactly that. Is a committee system where you have some standouts, but like the Saints, Kamara was teamed up with
Mark Ingram.
Yeah,
Same thing with the Falcons in the same division, or the Panthers. They had Stuart McCaffrey. Falcons had Tevin Coleman and Dontte Freeman. I wanted to say Foreman. Foreman is he's the kid who went to the Texans, I think, and then got hurt. But we'll be talking about all those guys here in the very near future because we've talked enough for today about Bell. Now it's time to talk about who might be the next guy, and that might be the guy, the man by himself or in tandem if they happen to put him with, let's just say James Conner, or let's say Stephen Ridley is still floating around up there. Geez, why not? I know that sounds crazy, but I mean, you could do worse for a third guy on the depth chart, right?
Absolutely.
So, folks, we're up against it, but you know what? Love the comments. There were a few there. There was somebody that said the last show sucked. I'll agree with you on that one. That's if they really listened to it and they weren't trolling. But I asked them why it sucked. I'm like, there's just a lot of little tidbits to talk about. And, Terry carried that a little more than I'm on the tail end of being sick. I was on the front end of getting sick for that show. So all apologies. We try to be as entertaining as possible. And then there's the people that Terry knew that gave us some praise and said the Toast guys. They didn't even know our names.
We forgot. We were going to talk about it. Yeah. We were going to talk about toast. I hate toast. You love toast.
I love it. I just had some earlier because, like I said, I wasn't feeling good. So some toast, a little bit of toast, dry toast. I'm keeping it down. The toast has made me strong enough to do this show. You should embrace the toast, Brian.
Tell me the difference between toast and a cracker.
I don't know. A cracker has salt on it.
You can put salt on toast. So you're saying if I put salt on toast, what I got is a cracker.
I could put I was going to say you could put lipstick on a pig too, but it doesn't mean you should. Just because you can doesn't mean you should. So
dry old nasty burnt bread's no good. Forget it.
It's fresh bread. It's almost like remaking the bread. I mean, I like that. I like it. It's so good. One of these days.
Here you go. Now I got to ask you it this way then. You just put a lasagna in the oven. It baked up nice, and it's really moist and tender. Do you look at it and go, no, I need to cook that again, otherwise it's not done?
No, I'll give you a good example. Aside from Mexican food and refried beans, because that's literally what you're doing, if my wife gets a steak, she will send it back. She likes it to be killed many times over. No pink. So
my wife says, make it a briquette.
Yeah, exactly. Let's make it look like charcoal. So we'll stop wasting everyone's time, folks. If you got any questions, we have the hotline. You could message us. You could leave the comments everywhere. Don't forget to subscribe. Until next time, my name is Joe. His name is Brian. Silky smooth. Be safe. Be good. We'll catch you later.
We would like to thank you for listening and remind our listeners to follow us on social media and our website, www.steelcityunderground.com.